In this video, I want to give a high-level overview of the contract to buy and sell real estate for residential property here in Colorado. As always, this is very high level, and I urge you to read all of the contract details in depth. If you have any questions or need clarification, certainly seek that. Obviously, this is a contract and it has important tax and legal implications. Firstly, to point out, this is authored and approved by the Colorado Real Estate Commission. And so for the most part, this is what 99% of residential real estate transactions are carried out through this contract within Colorado. I'm not going to go over every single element of it, but certainly the main parts that to focus on. I always say to focus on where there is blue ink and check boxes, because that is where there is a point of contract that has been altered by you or is a point of negotiation. So in the first instance, Section 2 outlines the parties and the property. It's really important in this section as the buyer that you have your name spelt correctly and that you have any initials or middle names that you want to have included on your deed and title to be in here correctly. This is the document that all of the deeds and title work will be used from, and so making sure that is spelt correctly in the first instance. Secondly, this is where you decide how you want to take title. Joint tenancy, tenants common or other. Most married couples take it as joint tenants. This just really means that if one of the two were to pass away, it would automatically transfer to the other person. Tenants in common generally means that it would go through probate or a will process. And then other is usually when it's a simple example is when somebody is buying the property by themselves, you would check other and add in severalty there. So that's just how title will be taken. Then it talks about the sellers and then the property address as well. So in this document, as I said, focus on the check marks and the blue ink. This talks about what inclusions and exclusions will be conveyed as part of the deal. And then really I want to skip down to dates and deadlines, because this is the chunkiest part of the contract, and this is where everybody needs to really pay attention. For the most part, a lot of these are very light lifting and not much to do, but what they really do is outline when certain things need to be delivered, reviewed by, due diligence carried out by, and then if there's any reasons a buyer would want to terminate based on the due diligence of that particular element, that is the deadline in which they have to do it. So one of the most, nerve-wracking and high-intensity periods of any contract to buy is the inspection. So I'll focus in on this one. So basically here it's saying that the inspection objection, so the buyer has to carry out an inspection of the property, and if they have any issues with it, have that objection to the seller by this date, by the inspection objection deadline. Then there's another few days in which the buyer and seller can negotiate on whether the inspection objection is going to be resolved, whether it's agreeing to fix something or whether it's not going to be. And in that case, the buyer has the ability to terminate the contract based on inspection and get their earnest money back. So these dates and deadlines really do spell out what becomes the chunky part of the rest of this contract and all the rights of the buyer and the seller to be able to do their due diligence. Next section worth focusing on is the purchase price and terms, and quite simply just spells out the price that you're offering for the property, how much earnest money you are going to be putting forward as a sign of good faith that you will go forward with the contract, your loan amount, and then how much you would bring to closing. So this is all spelled out in section 4. Then I'm going to skip right through down to the additional provisions. As I mentioned, a lot of this is relating to what was spelt out in the dates and deadlines. It's just expanding on what those dates and deadlines mean. This section here, 15, talks about all the different closing costs and who's responsible for them. And let us go through to additional provisions. Now, the additional provisions within a contract are where you can add some of the key hooks to winning a contract. There are several ways in which to do this. These are just some of the ones that I've put in here as an example. It may be that you are agreeing to put in an escalation clause where you will beat another offer by X amount up to a total amount. It may be where you put an inspection reserve in. It may be where you agree to pay for title insurance as the buyer, etc., etc. So Section 30 is really an area where you can outline those additional contract terms that you as a buyer are willing to do to win the deal. Then we have where the signatures are. Very easy to select signature font and save, and that as a buyer you have agreed to the terms of this contract. Then there's a place for the seller to sign, and then there is a place where your broker as a buyer's broker will sign that they do not have the earnest money, or they do have the earnest money, how they're representing you, and who will be paying the commission to your buyer agent. Then once the contract is, if the contract is accepted, this is where the seller's agent would sign. So that is essentially the contract to buy and sell real estate here in Colorado. Again, high-level video. Hopefully it's helpful. And as always, please read these in detail and understand them. Seek clarification where you may have questions.